So there's a teaching that we've discussed in the past numerous times. This is a teaching from Rabbi Nachman. And it's a teaching from Rabbi Nachman that if it was not written, it would be difficult to accept that such a teaching was actually said. And the teaching was with regards to Rabbi Nachman making a statement almost in the ether. It wasn't in the ether. It wasn't the Torah that he conveyed to his Talmidim, but it was one of those spontaneous notions that Rabbeinu expressed, almost thinking out loud, Kavyachol, so that Rabbi Nosson, Baruch Hashem, was there to record everything that was thought out loud for us, because he understood that there was something here, L'Dorei Doros. And ultimately what happens is that Rabbi Nachman says that people say that it is difficult to believe in Olam Haba. People say it's hard to believe in the world to come. So I don't have such a hard time believing in the world to come. What that means, perhaps, is the same mechanism that Rabbi Nachman uses, which is if you believe that you can destroy, believe that you can fix. Meaning it's not such a chiddush. If you believe in anything, then believe in everything that is said about that thing that you believe in. And when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the laws of Kedusha, Tahara, Tumah, all of the things that keep us stuck, what is equally true is that if we break, we can fix also. That hinges upon the same energy. If one is true, the other is true as well. And so too, Rabbi Nachman says, it's not so hard to believe in Olam Haba. You believe in Olam Haba, then you believe in Olam Haba, and you live as a Ben Olam Haba. But he said, Olam Haza is a much more difficult thing to actually conceive of. He says, because when I look around, I don't see any Olam Haza. I just see Gehenom. All I see is Gehenom. All I see is hell. And then Rabbi Nachman, after stating a principle about what reality is, then he goes into describing why we see what we see, that even the Gevirim suffer, and Mar B'Nesachim, Mar B'Daiga, and there's no person in the world that Ein Bayis She'ein Bo Meis, every person struggles. As Rabbi Nachman teaches us throughout his Torahs. But over here in this Hagdara that Rabbi Nachman says, I don't see Olam Haza, perhaps there's an Olam Haza somewhere. Over here what I see is Gehenom. And what we have to understand is obviously Rabbi Nachman, there's not a word that came out of Rabbi Nachman's mouth that was not affirmative. There was not one word that came out of Rabbi Nachman's mouth, or all the tzaddikim amitim, that is not driving things forward in an evolutionary process of growth orientation towards redemption. So when we hear a statement like this from Rabbi Nachman, which can easily be romanced and said, the world is hell. The world is obviously not hell. We know that. The world is tov ma'od. And so Rabbi Nachman says the world is hell. We have to then understand, how do we align these two opinions? We take the tzaddik's word seriously. If he's saying it's hell, that means it's hell. But obviously hell means something different, because we can't say hell it's not the fire and the punishment, God forbid. That's not what Metzias is. But there's something about Metzias which is Gehenom. And what I want to try and share is that there's a Torah. There's a Torah of La'asid Lavo. There's a Torah that comes from the future. A Torah of Atika Stima'a. A Torah of a concealed ancientness that is so powerful that it has to be removed from actual grasp, which is a Torah that comes to show us that Shamayim and Aretz, Gan Eden and Gehenom, are both part and parcel of a singular thing, which is the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That or of La'asid Lavo, where it's Hatoy v'hametiv. There's no more Baruch Dayan Emes. It's only Hatoy v'hametiv. It's that place where the good and the bad is revealed to be part and parcel of the singular pulsation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite light. And there comes a time in a person's life where the Torah of Achshav, the Torah of right now, the Torah of Olam Haza, is not enough. The Torah of Olam Haza is Deracher Eitz Chaim, Deracher Darchei Noam. It's the most beautiful thing in the world, but it's a Torah of Hova, as the Ramban writes in the introduction to the Chumash. It's a Torah in the permutation that we understand that obviously the Torah will always remain exactly what the Torah is, but our perception of the Torah will infinitely unfold into new vistas that will surprise our minds. But as we experience the Torah as it is right now, it's a Torah of Olam Haza, it's a Torah of Gan Eden. It's a Torah of being a Shamayim Dikiyid. It's a Torah of right or wrong. It's a Torah of up and down, of clarified and concealed. It's not the Torah of Atika Stima'a that says everything is part of the Yichud. Nothing outside of the Yichud. Impossible to conceive of anything outside of the Yichud. That Torah of the future remains hidden in the back of our mind, but there comes a time in a person's life where they're forced to access that Torah of the future. There's a time in a person's life where they have to access the Torah of Atika Stima. They have to access the Torah of the future that reveals that Kishem Sha Kiluso Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as Chazal say, that just as the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Oilem Megan Eden, Kacha Oilem Gehenom. So too does the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu come from Gehenom. Chazal understood. The entirety of Chazal, the Gra is all about this, is uncovering the hints and the crumbs that Chazal left and the Torah leaves for us to uncover the true secret of the Torah of Atikas Tima'a, which that everything, B'li Yotzim and Aklal, is good. Even death is Tov Ma'od. Even Gehenom is something that's part and parcel of the Yichud. And what are the conditions that force a person to accept the Torah from that place? So Chevra, you're with me so far? So let's pause to understand this type of Torah. We're saying that there's a Torah of this world, which is a Torah of Gan Eden. Hashem is found where He's found. And then there's a Torah of Atikas Tima'a, of an ancient future, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals Himself to be found where He's found and where He's not found. To be found in Gan Eden as well as Gehenom. As well as Gehenom. That's the Torah of the future. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did was He removed His infinite light. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mitzamsim Himself. And that simsum of HaKadosh Baruch Hu left a halal hapanoi, left a vacant space, an empty space, an emptiness, a Gehenom type of experience. And what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does is He allows the infinite ray of light, the Kav Or Ein Sof, to come back down into the halal. Emptiness now gets filled again with the light of holiness. But the Arizal makes something very clear. The Arizal says, do not think that ray of holiness and infinite light that comes back down into the void, it doesn't go all the way to the bottom. If it had gone all the way to the bottom, then up and down would be negated, and the bottom would be the top, and the top would be the bottom, and the secret of the Torah of Atikas Tima'a, and the secret of the Torah of Alma Da'asi, and the secret of Olam Hafuch Ra'isi. Al Yoinim Lamala V'Taflenim Amala. Had the Kav been yored down to the Tachtas HaChalal, had HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed Himself at the bottom of the void, then there would have been no question as to whether we would find HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or whether we would find HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In order to ensure that human beings had to struggle and grapple between choosing one thing or the other, HaKadosh Baruch Hu arrests the Kav from going down to the bottom of the Chalal to ensure that there's a distinction of up and down, of right or wrong, of connected and disconnected, of heaven or hell. Yeah?
Otherwise, everything would be batal.
Otherwise, everything would be batal. And so let's look at the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world and the reiteration of HaKadosh Baruch Hu creating the world, which is Matan Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu at Matan Torah was revealing the infinite light back into the world. The Midbar, Mitzrayim, is a Halal Hapanui. The entire story of Mitzrayim is about learning to live in a void, to empty oneself out, and to be empty with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is Ayin, to find Hashem in the palace of Paro. That's the Halal, that's the Tzimtzum, that's the Tumas Mitzrayim. It's where the Arizal revealed the secret of Tzimtzum, on the banks of the Nile River. And Matan Torah is the re-entrance of the Kav back into the Halal Hapanui. But there's above the mountain and there's under the mountain. The Torah of above the mountain is the Torah of Olam Hazeh, where the good is good and the bad is bad, and there's Baruch HaTov HaMeitav, and there's Dayan Emes, and there's Gehenom and Gan Eden, and there's revelation and concealment. But then there's another interesting place called Tachte Sahar, underneath the mountain. And there's an entirely different way of accepting the Torah from underneath the mountain. Above the mountain, we receive the Torah ba'ahav u'baratzon, ba'ahav ha'rab, ba'avas oilam. But b'tachte Sahar, where we're compelled, where we're forced against our wills, mamish, to receive the Torah, to be forced to say, Rahman al-Etzlan, all I can find is you, no matter how far away I run. That Tachte Sahar, Klal Yisrael had to go there as well. Tzaddikim say we were medachek ourselves. We pushed ourselves underneath the mountain to be makabel, not only the Torah from above the mountain, from the Kav that comes back down into reality and illuminates things, but from the bottom of the mountain where the Kav doesn't yet go. That place of emptiness, that place of the void. Because it's when you're in the void, when a person is in the void, B'tachta Sahar, where there's no apparent expression of godliness, it's specifically there that one needs to gain access to the deepest secrets of the Torah with the future orientation where even Gehenom itself is transformed into Torah. And that's the Kabbalah Satorah B'tachta Sahar, what the Gra and his Talmidim speak about in Kol HaTur, about the emergence of Mashiach, the seven wisdoms of the world, Teva, externality, that is B'tachta Sahar. We receive the Torah above the Har, where we're very frum in our Torah, and then we receive the Torah from the bottom of the Har, where we learn from existence itself, the Teva, where Rabbi Nachman described as the tzaddik when they're functioning really well, and the tzaddik on the way to Eretz Yisrael where they're really not functioning well. Both the Gehenom and the Gan Eden is important. So I want to read a keta that I read all the time from my Saba wrote a book about his life. It's Kodesh HaKadoshim to me. So this is, and I'm going to read something painful. I'm going to read, Chaver, with me on this. I'm going to read I'll read one page. So my Saba writes as follows. This is about the day that they arrived in Auschwitz. It was getting late, almost evening, and we were marched again in formation to another parade ground. On the way, we passed close to a high wire fence. We caught a fleeting glimpse of a group of women clinging to the other side of the fence. I heard my mother's voice calling our names. We couldn't break formation. I looked at her. Her head was as bald as ours. She had on a green evening gown with shoulder straps. Laichu, my Saba's sister, Leah, was standing next to her, head shaved and dressed in a flimsy dress. Mother shouted in horror, "Where is Yoilika?" We had no answers. This was the last time we saw Mother or Laichu till after the war was over. It got dark by the time we arrived at the other parade ground. All the time we were escorted and guarded by mean-looking SS troopers and their killer dogs. My Saba Mamash hated dogs. He would say psukim to get the dogs away. Like the tzaddikim. We now saw flames of a huge bonfire and columns of black smoke rising skyward in one direction of the camp. The flames lit up the sky. We also smelled the stench of burning flesh very much like a barbecue. We still had no idea of what it was or where it was in the world that we were. I remember saying to Father something along the lines of, "We are now on Mount Sinai about to receive the Torah. Remember, it says that they washed themselves and they changed their garments and they were told to stay away from the women. And the mountain was engulfed in fire." He just squeezed my hand harder and cried. The Torah of Atika Stima, the Torah of La'asad Lavu, is the Torah that enables a person to receive the Torah B'tachta Sahar. B'tachta Sahar, the Torah that emerges when I have absolutely nothing left but HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In that place, when the bottom drops out and a person realizes that the present is not enough, that in accordance with the mindset there's no apparent way out of the stuckness, then we must find a way to uncover a reserve power that has always been within us already, to uncover a greater strength of receiving the Torah B'tachta Sahar. And his father understood this wisdom of squeezing his hand even tighter and crying. It's not a pleasant Torah necessarily. The moments of B'tachta Sahar are not necessarily pleasant. They're apparently absent and devoid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence. But it's specifically there, B'tachta Sahar, that we're Megala the deepest Kavod Shemayim. The deepest Kavod Shemayim, because the Arizal said that the Kav doesn't go down to the bottom of the Chalal. But the Leshem, Shaboy V'Chaloim, Schusio Ganalenu, and the Rebbe Rashab in Tarnat, they both say that La'asad Lavo, the Kav will go down to the bottom of the Chalal. That Kav, which is suspended in Gan Eden, will eventually go down into Gehenom to reveal that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is just as much found in Gehenom as he is in Gan Eden. And at that point, those who stand at the bottom of the Chalal, in that empty space and that apparent division between Hashem's absolute effulgence and infinite presence, and us sitting at the bottom feeling absent and stuck in the tzimtzum, when we become aware that, yes, I might not feel the kav right now, I might not feel the kivui right now, but I know that it will come, at that point it's as if we're living in the future. At that point it's as if we've revealed the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the bottom itself. Of recognizing as a young child the fact that on the arrival to Auschwitz was a Matan Torah. There's a Torah that's given over in survival. There's a Torah that's given over out of Yesh. Out of Yesh. The Torah of Ein Shum Yesh B'Olam Klal. Before this place, before Tachta Sahar, and Tachta Sahar happens in a person's life every moment of their lives. Halavai, we don't need to go through Auschwitz anymore. We went through Auschwitz. We did it. We survived. We're the Sheris HaPleita. We're the Etzem HaLuz. We're that luz bone that doesn't die. It never dies. Even death can't kill it. We're already in Motzei Shabbos feeding ourselves with the feast of David Malka Mashiach. We don't have to be worried about trying to find Hashem in Auschwitz again. We have to find Hashem in every moment that feels like Tachta Sahar, where I feel that the Kav doesn't come down here. Hashem's light is not present here. And it's there that we reveal the secret of the Matan Torah B'tachta Sahar. But the secret of it is, what comes out of that Matan Torah? What comes out of receiving it? Is it a life of tzabrachenkite, God forbid? One cannot get rid of the tzabrachenkite. Mitzius is tzabrachen. But that Sabrachenkeit that the Mittler Rebbe describes as the prerequisite to understanding the secrets of Torah. Because it's only a hopeless person who is going to find hope even when it doesn't exist. It's only someone who has absolutely nothing left to stand upon who will create the secret ability to stand in the air, to find Torah even there. But what's the Torah? The Torah that comes out of it, that's nimshach out of it, is a Torah of nitzchias. It's netzach Yisrael lo yishaker. It survives death. It survives death. It's Sipurit Tzadikim at this point. Like Rabbi Nachman at the end of his life, he stopped saying stories. He stopped saying Torah. He just told stories. After the Shoah, it's not Torah anymore. It's just Sipurit Tzadikim that are Ma'oira Yeshenim. Every ounce of Torah that comes from that Chalal HaPanui is Sipurit Tzadikim that are there to wake us up to the Torah of the ancient days, which teaches us that Gam B'tachtas HaChalal, at the bottom where there's no hope whatsoever, it's specifically there that I received the Torah. But what is the Torah that's being received? My Saba wrote this book about his life. And my Saba, Schlusi Ogan Aleinu, was very worried about the industry of Yiddishkeit. I could write a book, the Halavai, we could write a book, the pithy statements that he had heard from his father of Asher B'Shvil Shesh Te'aser, that when you want to get rich as a Rebbe, you make Isurim. My Saba had jokes and jokes and jokes, piles of Yeh Begadim Frumin, that when a person's clothes, when a person is stuck in Sara'as, you should tear their clothes. My Saba said, when a person has Sara'as, what do? They make their levush look even frumer. Yeh Begadim Frumim. My Saba had a very sharp, razor-sharp nakuda of understanding what was right and what was wrong, what was emes and what was sheker. But the book that he wanted to hide, my Saba wrote a radical book. He wrote a pseudonym for himself. He was afraid that he would be put in Chayrim. And it was never published, but this book was a halachic sefer. And he called it Koyach Dehetera Atif. My Saba wrote a book about Koyach Dehetera. Koyach Dehetera, finding every Yirei Shemayim throughout the generations of Achronim and their Shalos and Shuvos, who in B'Shas HaTchak, of Shas HaTchak, allowed a stipulation within the law that enabled something that would have previously been disallowed, and he said, do this. Do this, you can do this. The Torah is there, Derachea Darchei Noam. That's the Torah that comes from Tachta Sahar. It's the only Torah that's possible. Koyach Dehetera Adif. Anu matirim l'espalelim avaryonim. At this point, after we receive Torah b'tachta Sahar, and we know, Hashem, you're going to reveal yourself in the end, as much as in Gehenom as Gan Eden, so then I'm a little bit more confident in my dealings with you now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Avad, I have nothing. This is not gaiva, that I have something and now I'm more confident, but I know your joke, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I know the joke of Koyach Dehetera Adif, that you made a good world. And it can appear ugly and miserable at times and frightening and terrifying, but Koyach Dehetera Adif. That was the secret. The secret of coming out of that place of Tachta Sahar was Koyach Dehetera Adif. That the Torah is there to make a Yid comfortable in this world, to give hope where there's no hope, to give Chayim. My Saba was a Machanich extraordinaire with young children, being madrich them in that place of Koyach Dehetera Adif. Never forgetting the trauma. My Saba never ever, he would wake up with nightmares ad soif yamav. He found solace in eating lox and not caring what anybody else had to say about it. He found solace in learning Torah and being makari v'yidin to Yiddishkeit and playing with his grandkids and learning with his grandkids and just looking around. My Saba's tainug was chayim. There was no other tainug other than salty fish, Sudasa de Leviasan, right? That's already the hisnaitis of the Torah of Atika Stima, the salty fish. But there was no joy other than the joy of life at that moment. And we should be zoichet to learn how to receive the Torah in those places of Tachta Sahar. We should learn how to transform the Gehenoms of our lives into Gan Eden. As the Baal Shem Tov said, there's a story told over about the Baal Shem Tov. The story told over about the Baal Shem Tov is as follows: that on the day that the Baal Shem Tov was born, the fires of hell were extinguished. The fires of hell stopped burning the day that the Baal Shem Tov was born. And the Malachim of Gehenom came running to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and they said, Rabbeinu Shalom, Gehenom's broken, we need a Gehenom. There has to be Gehenom. And so Rabbeinu Shalom and the Malachim came up with a solution. We'll take the stale air of Olam Haba, that air of Olam Haba that has already grown stale, that air of Gan Eden which has already lost its original flavor, we'll bring that, we'll make that the new Gehenom. And in the place of the original air of Gan Eden, we'll draw down more air of Gan Eden. That Gehenom now is the site of Gan Eden. It's the stale air of Gan Eden. Gehenom itself is the place of what? It's the place of the Suda of La'asad Lavo. The tzaddikim ask, where is there going to be room for a Suda of Lavyasan, where each and every person, in all of their rishus and all of their stuckness, will ultimately be able to say, Zeh Hashem kivinu lo. This is my God who I have perpetually been yearning for, on top of the mountain, under the mountain. All the Meforshim ask, where is there a place big enough to hold everybody? And Kuli Amalo Pligi, that it's in Gehenom. The Suda of Lavyasan, the Suda of the Shor Habar, the Suda with Mashiach Tzidkenu, where only David HaMelech, the one who lived in hell itself, the one who was never meant to be born, he was living dead at the same time. David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. Chidushei Arim says that David and Shlomo loved to walk the boundary between Gan Eden and Gehenom, because that's where they found the most pleasure. And David at that place in Gehenom is going to be able to say, who should bench on the Kos Shabracha? Who should bench on the Kos Shabracha? Ani Yavarech Aveli Na'el Yavarech. I'm going to bench because I'm the one who deserves to bench. Why? Because David HaMelech was the one who revealed the Torah in hell. David HaMelech had his hands bloodied, covered over by the filth of this world, by the difficulties of this world. And he was able to refine it, Hariyu LaHashem Kol Haaretz, to reveal the secret of halacha that comes from Tach Sahar, which is Koyach De'Hetera Adif, with Yiras Shamayim on every level. My Saba didn't respect, it wasn't that he, God forbid, didn't respect the Poskim. He respected the Poskim enough to believe that when they allowed for something comfortable, that was where a Yid is meant to find themselves. The only Torah after Auschwitz is a Torah of Menucha, a Torah of comfort, a Torah of Gam Ki Yilach Beget Samaves Lo Yirora Ki Ati Madi. And in that place, when Gehenom is transformed into Gan Eden, we come to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu everywhere. We've said this before, the Baal Tanya, and with this we're going to end, and I want to sing that one nigun afterwards, at least, that the Baal Tanya, at his deathbed, after giving over Nefesh Shvela, one of the most significant teachings in the history of Chabad about why the Iker Giloy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Achras Hayamim is going to be specifically in the Sheker of all things. Not in the MS of that frumkeit and that idealism, but that sheker of, I just need to figure out how to make another Yid feel good at this moment. That's the only thing. Truth is not necessarily a consideration here. The true consideration is what the Emunah says. And the Baal Tanya asked for a cup of coffee, which is kivoy, which is the hope that kav will come back down, like the Ramchal says. And he says, Ani margish gehenim b'meyav, I feel hell in my belly. The Baal Tanya, like all tzaddikim, were suffering, as Chazal say, from a stomach issue. I feel hell in my stomach, which was uncharacteristic of the Baal Tanya to complain. And then he gave over his mimer. So what could it mean that the Baal Tanya was saying, I feel hell in my stomach? So there's a Maisa that's said over by the Baal Tanya as well, that the neshamos of tzaddikim, what are the neshamos of tzaddikim? The neshamos of chasidim, Freudian slip. The neshamos of chasidim are neshamos that were stuck in hell for a long time. And in hell, there's an isser on hasagas elokus. There's no grasping of comfort or godliness in hell. Mamela, when that neshama gets out of hell, the only thing that it wants to do is be masig more and more elokus. More and more elokus. B'tach Sahara, on top of the mountain, underneath the mountain. And so we can understand what the Baal Tanya was saying. I have Gehenom in my stomach because these tzaddikim, Rabbi Nachman, Baal Tanya, all of the tzaddikim amitim, they carry the neshamos of those neshamos that feel that I need to yearn only for elokus. Only for elokus. I've tasted hell. I know what the privation of godliness feels like. I know what it smells like. And the only truth that comes out of that encounter is the truth that Shir Hashirim is conveying, that in the face of death and in the face of transiency, the only thing one can do is throw themselves with abandonment and ahava rabba, ahava azak kamaves, ahava b'ta'anugim, ahava mesuteres aboer ad ein sof, in the moment itself. And again, one last story about my Saba. That my Saba was working in Canada, because it's going to be zavig the whole thing. My Saba was working in Canada and Auschwitz, which was where you went through the possessions of people who had lost their notion of being people. And he was with a dayan from Chust. And my Saba was 14 at the time and didn't have his peilach anymore. And the dayan said, Srolka, it's going to be sukkah soon, save some bread. There's a plank of wood outside, and we're going to make a bracha of leishev basukah together. And they prepared mamish. And under the cover of night, they went and they made a leishev basukah. And my Saba told my father that he was absolutely convinced that Mashiach Tzidkenu was going to arrive as a result of that bracha of mitzvah sukkah. And so my father, being my father and having grown up in such a place with such a Torah, said, but you looked up through the schach and you didn't see the stars, you saw smoke from the crematoria. And Mashiach didn't come. And so my Saba responded to him, he says, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's cheshbon. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's cheshbon. That's not my cheshbon. I did what I needed to do. And my father said, so what did you do next? And my Saba smiled and he said, we started saving the peels of potatoes to make Hanukkah licht. And so this Torah of Koyach deHetera Adif, every moment needs its new heter. Every moment needs a heter to deal with it, to engage with it, to elevate it. Every moment. If a person were to give focus to any ounce of pain that a Yid experiences, it would be enough to drive them meshuggah. And I can only speak for myself, so Baruch Hashem for apathy, of not being able to feel the tsar of Yisrael, because otherwise you wouldn't function. But be'emes, any attention paid to the tsar of Klal Yisrael is enough to drive a person mad. It's enough for a person to be a chayni hamagel, to be unwilling to leave this circle until HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you megala yourself. What is this already? Take it from miyad mamish. It's understandable. It's understandable why it's a lachatchila ariber, break through any wall necessary. And in that place, we uncover the secret of all I can do is in this moment. Koyach dehetera adif, anu matirim lespalelim avaryanim, to be opening the pockets of Gehenom. Chazal say, Shlosha psachim leGehenom yesh. There are 3 openings into hell. Zak the yesharim me'ishbitz. He says, Rebbeinu Shalom, forget about where these openings are. Let's look at these words. There are openings to hell. There are openings in hell, which means if you find yourself in hell, you could also come out. And that's what he wanted to bring on, the openings in hell. As the Maharal says, hell is nothing other than emptiness, he'edar. Emptiness, unfulfillment, boredom, lethargy, hopelessness. Unmoving. And the avodah is to bring Mashiach in each and every moment. Gemara l'matchilim, Gemara l'matchilim, Gemara l'matchilim. Gemar Aleph, l'matchilim. Finish Aleph for those who are beginning again. Aleph, that's it. Aleph, Aleph, Aleph. Always throwing oneself into the Alufa Sha'olam, which is Mahapich, the lower yud of Gehenom, the upper yud of Gan Eden, to be Machaber, both of them together, to be Megala, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is found in both places, and Simsum Inikapshuto, which is going to bring Mashiach Tzidkenu Be'ezras Hashem.